There is nothing worse than untapped potentials. If you know that you're made for more, this is the place. I know that every successful person I've ever met has one thing in common. They do not let themselves fall victim to their circumstances. They figure out a way to rise above it. So join me on this journey where I help you to be better, do better, and have better in life and in business. If you're feeling stuck and you're needing some practical tools, some hope to get you to that better life, this is definitely the place for you. Everyone, welcome to the next episode of the Unstuck Podcast. I'm your host, Shelby May, and you guys, we have a chance to talk to licensed family and marriage therapist Tatiana Rojas. She is amazing. Is going to give us all kinds of amazing tips and tricks and practical solutions just naturally through her story. That is so inspirational. Tatiana, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so grateful for you and everything that you're going to do to bless us today.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yay. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and how you love to serve people?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, but before that, I'm actually a wife and a mother, and so I have a extensive history and just in terms of family and everything that I do. So, realistically, like I've been married for quite a few years now. I can't even remember. Like I think we're at 6 years. We've been together for 10. I've been a mom for 3, and hopefully going to be expanding the family fairly soon. So I'm excited about that. But really, another part of my identity is being a licensed marriage and family therapist and helping other moms, helping other people deal with anxiety, depression, adjusting to work-life stressors. Obviously, we've been in a pandemic for way too long. And so just dealing with the struggles that brings as well in terms of isolation and just adjustments for everyone else in the world. So I have been super blessed to have been able to transition from working in community mental health and jumping into private practice and working independently on my own. And I'm really excited for what the future holds. So.
Well, congratulations on that, because that is such a big, beautiful step for you to be able to serve people on a whole different level. And so I just want to say, honor that. Congratulations on that big step. That's amazing.
Yes.
And I would love to know a little bit more about your journey so that we can all learn from you and the path that you've had to take in order to get to this place.
Yeah. I think just if you ask any therapist kind of how they got into the field or what got them there, they've always been the go-to person, the person that listens, the person that kind of takes everything in, definitely more introverted, observant kind of individuals. And so I think it started from a really young age, and just seeing family dynamics, seeing kind of everything come into play. And from that point, I think it was shortly after, I think in high school, I decided I was like, I think a counselor might be a really cool idea. Didn't know much about it at the time. It wasn't, mental health was definitely not talked about as much as it is now. So I'm so happy with how much it has progressed in so many ways. And I think I had some difficulties within my own family, just some issues that had come up that were out of my control. Decided to stay local, I guess, for college, played sports at the college level, still was not sure what to do, and landed up taking a college coaching position in the Midwest because I wanted to kind of just expand my wings, grow a little bit, be independent. And it was there kind of working with some of the college age women that I worked with in some of their areas and recognizing that, I can really not just listen, I can actually make something more of this. With some of the things that had kind of come up just sporadically with them, sporadically with where I was at in my growth and development as well. Looked at a couple of different programs and decided to return home so I could attend grad school and kind of pursue that a little bit more. So once I did that, it was kind of then just pedal to the metal and getting things done. And that was about a decade ago. And so when I think about all the time spent with that, absolutely just a blur when you look at all of the time and effort that goes into getting licensed and getting the degree and all of those steps that it takes. But really, where everything kind of, I think, worlds collided, and it was just like, okay, through the process, graduate, wonderful, try and find a job, get into the workforce within the mental health field, did that. And then got married and was like, okay, I'm living in Southern California. How is this going to pan out? Have a decent job, was kind of moving forward. And then I think it was probably within the last 2 years, within the midst of the pandemic, and after having my first child, going, uh, okay, this is no longer gonna work for me in this way. And there's a lot of talk within the mental health field with providers actually getting and reaching that burnout point. And I had definitely reached that point after getting licensed and actually pivoted to working in quality assurance and learned a whole heck of a lot about the back end work of operations, and was like, this is amazing, but this is also not, I'm not providing direct service as much as I had previously done.
Right.
So not talking to the clients directly face to face. A lot of my experience have been with children and adolescents, which was great, and which was, there's such a need there for families, and definitely hit a point, I would say back in July of 2021, where I was like, okay, this is no longer kind of where I want to be, or kind of what I want to be doing. What do I do next? And so this is really where it kind of gets to the getting unstuck part, because I could no longer be comfortable just kind of with what was going on and where I was at. And I wanted to do a little bit more, um, expand in some different ways, really kind of find. And I think I learned so much through the first couple of years of motherhood that I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much that is not talked about, is not addressed, is not explored, is not provided, in so many ways. And I was like, I really want to help this population. And I really want to look at how I can expand that in so many ways for myself, just in what I've learned in my own personal development. But I've also done my own therapy for like, I don't know, probably just as long, like a decades long worth of work in so many ways. So I really kind of had to sit down and go, what do I want? Where do I want this to look like? And how do I want this to overall be within the next, what's a 10-year plan? What's a 5-year plan? What's a 3-year plan? What's a 1-year plan? And as I kind of sat down and looked at everything, and then life really slammed me hard. And when I say it slammed me hard, it was hard. I think there was a point where there was a lot of interesting family dynamics happening that was stressful. I had experienced my own miscarriage, which was hard, and it was not something that I had experienced what's called a blighted ovum. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it's
Yeah,
basically,
the audience would probably love to hear more about that.
yeah. So this is when basically your body feels like it's pregnant. It's kind of doing all the signs, all of the symptoms. You go to your first ultrasound and you check the screen, and there is no baby. The embryo basically didn't implant properly, and so therefore there is no development. So it's pretty shocking when you see that for the first time. I knew nothing about it at the time, didn't know. I knew the stat of 1 in 4 miscarriages happens. Definitely was not uh, blind to that, or didn't know that that was a thing. I just didn't know that this was something that could potentially happen. So it was very shocking. It was very numbing. It was very difficult to kind of process initially. Didn't get a lot of help from my healthcare provider. So that was frustrating. So kind of jumping back on that mom train of wanting to support, I think there needs to be a lot more education that's provided, and also just dealing with that mental help. Like I literally had to ask my doctor for support groups or services or anything. And even then it was, well, here's a number, a social worker will call you, and then maybe they'll be able to talk with you about something. And then even that, it was, well, you can check out this website for support groups. Not that there was a specific one for that, which I thought was very, very frustrating, and definitely led me down kind of a lonely, isolated path that I didn't know existed for myself. And I don't think anyone really wants to be in that place, but it was very difficult. I think about, I would say 2 weeks or so after finding out about the kind of that, my husband lost his job. And so it was just like bam, 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 like everything kind of was difficult. I think I had also lost my cousin to COVID, which was a big thing within the family, just to kind of, although I wasn't extremely close, it was still just another shocker.
It's real. Like I think a
Yeah,
lot of if we didn't have somebody that was personally impacted, the gravity of it wasn't felt like it does when somebody that you know personally. So yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, essentially what we're talking about too is like 3 different grief,
Yeah.
um, instances and events that kind of occurred, even the job loss, even, um, the invisible losses, kind of I've come to think of it as, for the miscarriage and then my cousin. So it was a lot. And then, like I said, I also had family dynamics that were shifting, and so those kind of had to make some shifts as well, and that was another kind of, loss in and of itself. So it got to a point, I mean, this is, coming towards holiday time. It's supposed to be fun and exciting, and it wasn't. It really wasn't, and it was hard. Um, but after that, it was like, okay, I kind of sat with the sadness, sat with the depression, probably for, I mean, knowing the education that I have was really helpful, knowing that I could reach out, to different individuals that had experienced not exactly the same things, but very similar things in different ways. I started to do that in January, and then in February, it was like, this really needs to shift. Something needs to change. This is no longer,
That
I don't I don't feel filled. I don't feel like I'm living anymore.
There's
So,
so many things that I want to just unpack real quick before we move on to the rest,
yeah.
because there's some big nuggets here, guys, that I want to make sure that we mention. Number one, she's mentioned a couple times just recently, this last few sentences, that she just recognized that something had to change. Like, that's the power of feeling stuck. When you're feeling
Mhm.
stuck, you recognize that you're in a place that you no longer want to be in, and you're willing to take the next step that's going to get you out of that. I think sometimes we can get comfortable in our comfort zone, even if it's not all that on that really all that cozy, but it's not painful enough. And I think that when we recognize that we're stuck, it's like that's the point where, like, okay, nope, this doesn't feel comfortable anymore. This feels confining. This feels like I don't want to be here anymore, and we're willing to take that next step. The other thing that I wanted to recognize is that Tatiana is an expert in the brain and our emotions and mental health and all the things. And she mentioned a couple of things that I really want you guys to pay attention to. Number one, even professionals like myself have professionals that we use. I think the more that we recognize the power of our minds, the more we recognize that coaches should have coaches, therapists should have therapists, because we recognize the power of what happens in our mind. And so oftentimes we have blind spots that we can't see because they're too close to us. That when you're with someone else that knows how to navigate that and help you through that, it's so powerful. And so I know that oftentimes many of us want to go to the library or go to Barnes and Noble and find the self-help and find the podcast that just like this one that's going to help you. And I do hope that these help move the needle. But I want you just to remember that there's nothing wrong with you if you choose to have an extra person, an extra expert to be in your situation with their finger on your pulse, okay? And so I really just want to acknowledge those things, because I think sometimes we can get really stuck when we think we have to do it all on our own. And that leads me to my third kind of aha that I really want you guys to listen to is, if you've never ever experienced a miscarriage, it's going to be really hard for you to understand, but when you have, it's a very isolating, lonely place to be. And I am someone who unfortunately can you know tell you that I've walked that walk. And just like you, it was a different situation, but we had to go through fertility and had a fertility treatment in order to get pregnant. And I went in for my ultrasound because the medicine that I was on made me feel pregnant. I was tired, I was bloated, I was, nauseous, I was all the things, right? And then I get there and they tell us that they're twins, and they tell us they're no longer alive. And so not only did I have to experience a loss, but in my brain, like, I was angry. Like, why couldn't at least one of them survive? And so you go through all these things, but then you feel like you're I don't know, different, or there's something wrong with you when you're grieving the way that you're grieving, because you haven't even met this child yet. But this has been 10 years, and I still can imagine them at my dinner table and how my life would be different. And so you still grieve. You grieve what could be. You grieve what, you allow yourself to get excited for this new family, and it's gone. And so it's not only just the loss of the person, but it's the loss of the dreams that come along with that. And so I just wanted to, number one, just honor you for this
Mm.
experience because it is so isolating. And I think that if you don't understand what it's like, just know that the people who have miscarried are probably hurting, and they probably do just would appreciate an extra hug and an extra, hey, girl, I'm here. If it's okay if you're not okay. And
Yeah.
I think that so oftentimes we try to navigate this crazy life alone. And it's conversations like this that raise awareness, and it's conversations like this that allow us to know that there are people out there who understand and who want to help us move from where we are to where we want to be, hence being stuck, right? So, anyway, there's so many things that you said that I really just wanted to highlight because I thought you said it so beautifully. So, thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to say I'm so sorry that that was your experience, and I'm so glad to see kind of you thriving in what what your life is today. But yes, it is extremely difficult, and until you've been in that place, um, it's not anything you could have imagined, or how you're going to respond, or preparing for that is just not something that can really happen. Um, but I think, and you said, it wonderfully even right now to just check in with those individuals, but sometimes people don't even talk about it. And I think that's the hard part. They don't bring it up, they don't mention it. Um, but I know it's getting talked about even a lot more, which I think is wonderful. And I think even I during that time had to when I told a slew of people, and just kind of I can't I think I made a video just because I was like, I can only do this once. I can only make one explanation, and I'm just gonna send it to everyone. And at the end of it, I just said, if you're thinking about me, check in on me, but please don't ask questions. I will let you know when I am ready, because I'm not ready right now. I don't know the science. I don't know everything behind it. I don't know the causes. I'm still learning about my body and what's happening. But just check in on me and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about you." That is the most you can do. But please don't ask me how I'm feeling, because I don't even know.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you from the day to day what that will look like. And so that was another big thing for me that really helped me get the support that I needed. And I
Right.
think that's a big piece of what I actually talk with a lot of my clients about, is speaking what you need and what you want, putting it out there. Because if you don't do that, you're not going to get what you need or want.
Right.
Unfortunately, you're going to kind of be there, which kind of leads into, yeah, the next step of what I did. I knew what I needed and what I wanted. And what I wanted was not to feel stuck, to not be in the same place, to not feel restricted and suffocated by the loss, or just kind of where I was at.
Mm.
I needed to grow and move on and move forward and heal in so many different ways. So, um, my husband and I decided we needed to make a shift after we kind of talked about everything that had happened, the stresses that were going on just in life, and kind of what we were feeling. We were living in California, which, hello, all of you California listeners, but it is expensive.
Yeah.
And it was definitely not going to work out long term for us in terms of what we wanted for our lives and where we were at. So we took a trip to Texas. And I think it was one of the most refreshing trips. And it was just such a nice time for us to get away, but also just to take a look at the communities that we were interested in potentially. And I think shortly after that trip, within about a day or two, we're like, yes, we need to move. Let's do it. Like, there is just, we cannot stay in the same place, because I feel stuck. I feel restricted in what I can do, how I can move, what I want for us and our family. And it's not just for what I want, even for my career, but it's what I want for us collectively.
Right.
So we made the decision then. This is in February, and now we're talking, and it's what, October. And it was also during that time too that I knew I needed to start to reach out to a network of people to figure out how to navigate this process. And so, just like I mentioned, asking for what you need, asking for what you want, I started to go into Facebook groups and ask about private practice. I started to ask about different things that I was interested in, or pay attention and join groups and different things of that nature, and start to reach out to people that had what I wanted,
Hmm.
and or that were in the same place and could be like a peer support.
Yeah.
And I was very surprised that I think I posted just one post in one group and was like, "Hey, is anyone else feeling this way? Does anyone else just want to chat?" And got an amazing response. And I was like, "Okay, I'm not alone.
Hmm.
I'm not alone in any of this." When you, especially when it comes to launching anything independently on your own, wanting to go out on your own, especially within the mental health field, this grad school does not teach you any of this
Right,
at
right.
all.
No, the business side of it is not covered. No.
No. So I was like, great, how do I navigate this? Because I didn't go get a business degree. I got a degree to help others and listen and
Mhm.
process dynamics and different things of that nature. And so it was a learning process, it was a learning curve, and definitely did a lot of research and then was like, all right, the only way that this is going to be possible is if I leave my community mental health job that was I felt was secure, that I was doing a really good job with, that had a really like utilize my skill set probably almost to its fullest in so many ways. And I had grown so much just within this company and loved the agency, my team, everything I was a part of. But I'm like, in order for me to move forward, I'm gonna have to say, I'll see you later, unfortunately, and gave my notice and then worked forward on trying to figure out what the next steps were for me and my family.
And I
So,
want to just acknowledge something too, that sometimes when we're feeling stuck, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're feeling stuck in all areas of our life. There might be some parts of it that is going really well. Like you really liked your job, right? I really loved my job when I left it a month ago. I,
mhm.
my husband and I had talked at one point about moving because of career, but we built our dream home. And so sometimes there are going to be parts of it that you're going to have to decide to release and mourn in order for you to be able to step into the right path in other areas of your life where you're feeling stuck, don't you think?
Oh, 100%. And yeah, and I think you just said it right there. Not everything has to be going to be able to feel stuck, but sometimes we do have to let things go in order to move forward. Not everything is going to be perfect, and not every situation has the greatest timing, unfortunately, which is also another big thing. But yeah, I know for me, and I can only speak for me and my process and my experience. Once I kind of said, okay, we made this decision, started letting people know. I felt this huge weight, just like relief, like I can do the things that I want to do, but also I think knowing what's possible.
Yes.
And it was going, there was such a huge mindset around having to have, if you want to say like a quote unquote 9 to 5 job that had benefits, that had certain things, living in a community or in the same place that I was super familiar with. I had to kind of let all of that go and say, no, in order for me to continue to flourish, essentially, like, I've outgrown my pot. Like, if I'm a plant, I've outgrown my pot and I need to move myself
Mhm.
and my family. And so once I did that, though, it was absolutely just an amazing shift and transition. And then I continued to just work on kind of building some relationships that were going to be helpful for me,
Mm.
that were going to be beneficial for me, that were going to ground me, that were going to also just check in with me in different ways, whether that was, professionally, my friends, my close friends that are moms as well that have dealt with what I've dealt with. Um, and family that my family wasn't all close by, so just kind of checking in with them and them checking in with me as well. So there was so much that transitioned, and I think from February up until May, we moved in May, and so it was a pretty quick turnaround for us. We've been in Texas since May, and I feel like we've grown leaps and bounds just in terms of just comfort and relaxation, less stress in so many ways that I didn't know was possible. I didn't know was going to be a thing that would happen. And after all this time, like I said, you don't go to school to learn the business. So now it's kind of getting that up and running and moving forward, and nothing but exciting things are happening just because you make a shift, make a change. So,
Right, and you can allow when I think we hang on, and those of you guys who are listening, picture me with my hands with fists really tight. Okay, so when we're hanging on to things that we know so tightly, we don't have any space to be able to pick up or accept the things that are trying to be handed to us. And so when I'm learning to open my palms and let go of the things and release the things, I can actually now accept the better that's coming into it. So I think that that's so powerful. You also said something about when you made the decision, you felt lighter, you felt free. And oftentimes, when we're trying to make big decisions like this, we feel like we have to have every step from A to Z already figured out. What happens sometimes is when we make the decision, it's like it's crazy because we can have all the pros and cons and doing all the things inside of our head. But it's like once we just make the decision and our inner knowing like takes over, the how honestly just starts to unfold before you. It's like once you make the decision, you'll figure it out. And it's like this totally different energy around it, don't you think?
Oh, 100%, 100% because you're not overthinking things. You're just
Right.
looking for opportunities,
Yes,
which
exactly.
generally get presented to you
Which they present.
so openly.
Yes, yes, and the other thing that you said too, that you had a community of people that you were able to build, and I think that sometimes too, if you're trying to figure out the how, it's not what you know, but it's who you know in the sense of one conversation, one 10-minute conversation can literally change the trajectory of everything that you're doing. And so just making the decision and then being open to the how and the people, the who you know will literally present themselves with the solutions to get you to where you need to go. It's really remarkable how that all works, isn't it?
Yeah, well, and it's and I wanna kind of touch on that a little bit too, because it's not always that you'll get a response to a how, but you'll get so much support in
Mm,
going, and that is so motivating. Of,
yeah.
"Oh, I never thought about that," or, "I didn't think that that was, like, a thing that could happen or that that was possible." And then you start kind of filling, like, other people in on that same energy of, like, "Hey, you don't have to be bound by certain things. You're only bound by your own limits." And I think that's also what I found too, is that some people weren't ready, but they were like, "Oh, it's like planted a seed," or for them, it's like, wow, look at what someone else is getting an opportunity to do. And that is absolutely so encouraging. And I felt so encouraged just even by those conversations in so many ways.
And so oftentimes we can get sucked into the comparison game where we feel stuck and then we look at other people that are thriving behind us. But when we can look at it like, wow, it's possible,
Yeah.
showing you
Yeah.
that it's possible. And I think that when you can attach that hope to it, like that's oftentimes the first step to getting unstuck is recognizing that it's possible to get unstuck.
hmm Definitely. And like I said, I think I mentioned earlier, I started to reach out to people that had what I wanted and
Yeah.
just talking with them or just having conversations about, shifting things. And I know for me, I definitely identify as Hispanic. I also have some Native American ancestry in me as well. And just looking also at some of those limitations that were presented, even generationally and historically, and going, it doesn't have to continue to be this way. I am the first in my family to get an advanced degree. I'm the first one to even, I really think, in what I can think of, is have my own business, run my own show, um, do what I can to provide for my family, which has not really been done. And I'm going to take that and I'm going to run with it as much as I possibly can and go as far as I can with it, because this all wasn't the opportunities may have been there and I didn't see them or I didn't know, but it definitely wasn't something that was talked about growing up either.
Right. I know. I think that, like you said, you have to sometimes be ready. And again, sometimes you have to be able to open your hand up and ready to receive the things that are around you. Things abundance is around us. The knowledge is around us. The people are already living in existence right now. The people that you need to meet are meant to meet to change your life. Everything's already here. It's just
Mhm.
about being able to open our eyes up and to be able to accept and receive all of the amazing resources that are out there. My gosh, this has been so much fun to talk to you. Is there anything that you really wanted to touch on before we wrap up our conversation?
I really just think going back to what I had said earlier about asking for what you want and what you need. So whether that's asking your husband for what you want or need, or your partner, or your friends, your family, it's also kind of taking some time to reflect and know what you want. But I think that that is probably one of the biggest things that people will get to, whether it's a big major life decision or even just the small minimal things that come up in life. And I think with that, you'll find out that you have a voice and what you want like matters. And so you might as well give it a shot and see what you can get with that. Because there's so many people that don't do that
Absolutely.
in so many areas of their lives.
100%. Oh my gosh. And I always ask my guests to give my audience a question to think about that's going to help move them from where they are to where they want to be. And I believe that you just did that so beautifully. Like, what are you asking for what you want?
Yeah. And what is it that you want? Where do you want to be in the next 6 months to a year? And are
I
you preparing for that?
so much. You guys, if you haven't already subscribed, make sure that you do that. Leave a review so Tatiana can really just be able to fully embrace all of the beauty that you guys got out of her conversation with me today. If you haven't, take a screenshot, share it in your stories, tag us so that we can tag you back and have so much fun with that. And I just, as always, love you all so much. Thank you for listening. If you're ready to get unstuck and you want to have a quick little chat with me on how that could look and really propel yourself to basically get out of your own way and make the money in the life that you want faster, make sure that you hit the show notes and check that out. And all of amazing things that you can do to connect with Tatiana will be in the show notes as well. Thanks everybody for popping in. And I am so, so grateful for all of you. Thanks for listening. Bye
Mhm.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Untucked podcast. I am so grateful to be on this journey with you. And don't forget to check out the show notes if you want to get into my private club, the Better Club, to be able to learn better ways to be better, do better, and have better. So until next time, keep showing up. Let's get unstuck together. Have a great day.